My sister stole my identity, maxed out my credit, and blamed me for her deaths. My revenge? Amazing. The first red flag was a phone bill I didn't recognize. It came in my mail, addressed to me, with a number I'd never used and calls to places I'd never been. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a mix-up in the billing system. I tossed it aside and moved on. But 2 weeks later, a sleek envelope from a luxury store arrived. Inside, a receipt for high-end clothes I hadn't bought, charged to a card I never applied for. I stared at the paper, confused. My name, my address, my signature forged perfectly. I logged into my credit report that night. I wish I hadn't. 3 credit cards opened within the past month. 2 personal loans, each in the 5-figure range. A lease on a vehicle I'd never seen in person. My score had plummeted by almost 200 points. Panic hit me like cold water. I hadn't borrowed a cent. Yet there it was, debt stacked on my name, interest building by the day, and lenders expecting money I didn't know. I remember sitting at the kitchen table that night, staring at my laptop, trying to piece together how this happened. My hands were shaking. I'd been careful with my finances all my life. I never shared passwords, never gave out my social, always shredded my documents. But someone had everything they needed to become me. Not just copy me, be me. It wasn't just a theft. It was a full replacement. I didn't even suspect her at first. My sister, Laura, had always been the charming one. People gravitated toward her, drawn in by her smile, her effortless lies that sounded like truths. Growing up, she'd always been the one to get out of trouble while I took the heat. I was the quiet one, the serious one, the one nobody quite listened to. So when I confronted her, phone in hand, records pulled up, proof ready, I still expected denial, maybe confusion. I didn't expect her to laugh. She looked me straight in the face and said, "No one will believe you over me." The way she said it, it wasn't a threat. It was a certainty. Like she'd already rehearsed it in her mind 100 times. She said I was reckless, that I'd always been bad with money, that I must have opened those accounts during one of my phases. She told my parents I was spiraling, that I was trying to pin it on her because I couldn't admit I'd ruined myself. And they believed her, without question. My own parents looked at me with pity. My older brother called to tell me he was disappointed. My aunt suggested therapy. I tried to show them the statements, the transactions, the forged signatures. But Laura had already gotten ahead of me. She spun the story just right, how I was faking fraud to avoid responsibility, how I needed help. She cried when she told them. I didn't even know she could cry on command. But while she was living it up, designer bags, weekend getaways, dinners she paid for with my name, I was quietly collecting. I stopped confronting her. I stopped talking. Instead, I started tracking. Every charge. Every location. I got access to the security cameras of the boutique where she used my card. I pulled the footage. There she was, smiling at the cashier, signing my name like she owned it. I found call logs from the phone account, calls to her friends. I recorded one of those calls where she bragged about using her idiot brother's info to furnish her life. I traced the IP addresses for the accounts. Her apartment, her phone, her laptop. I set up fake email accounts and baited her into replying, confirming details only she would know. I dug deep, even reaching out to a friend of hers who'd grown tired of her antics. They gave me screenshots, messages where she laughed about how gullible everyone was, how no one would suspect her. When I had everything, I filed the reports. Federal Trade Commission, Police Fraud Unit, Credit Bureaus. I froze every account linked to my social. I submitted identity theft affidavits. I gave them the footage, the audio recordings, the screenshots, the forged signatures, everything stacked in a timeline too perfect to ignore. And then I waited, quietly. Then came the letter. Court summons. Civil and criminal charges. The hearing was scheduled. I showed up early, sat in the front row, and watched as she walked and dressed in borrowed confidence and fake innocence. My family sat behind her, uncertain but still leaning in her direction. But when the evidence rolled out, projected on the screen, piece by piece, time-stamped and undeniable, I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The footage, the audio, The logs. They spoke louder than any accusation ever could. Her face changed slowly, not all at once. First confusion, then panic, then silence. By the end of the hearing, her attorney had stopped defending her. She'd lost her job a week later when the fraud charges went public. Her lease was terminated, her credit destroyed, her bank accounts flagged. Employers blacklisted her. And as the bailiff escorted her out, she looked back at me. Not in anger, not in hatred, in desperation. Like she still thought I might save her. I didn't move. I just smiled and said, "No one believes you over me anymore." She tried to steal my identity, but all she did was hand me the shattered remains of hers. I didn't celebrate. Not when the verdict was read, not when she was led out of the courtroom, and not when my name was cleared. I sat still as people around me whispered and avoided eye contact. The same relatives who doubted me now offered half-hearted nods or looked away altogether. They hadn't come to support me. They came to witness a car crash, and when the impact became real, they just wanted to walk away from the mess. Clearing my credit took time. The court's ruling helped, but fixing the damage wasn't instant. I still had to contact each creditor, dispute each charge again, submit the same files, the same documents, relive the story over and over. I had to sit through long calls, verify every detail, and answer the same questions to people who spoke like scripts. Some accounts were removed. Some dragged on with pending investigations. But the worst part wasn't the paperwork. It was knowing every delay, every long night on hold, was because of her. She didn't go to prison right away. The sentence was delayed while the civil case went through. She got bail, stayed at our parents' place. When I found out, I called my father. He said she had nowhere else to go. I asked if he remembered the part where she nearly ruined my life. He said she was still family. That word lost its weight for me after that. She called once. No apology. No explanation. Just a short voicemail. "I messed up. You made your point. Can we talk?" I deleted it without replying. There was nothing left to say. I kept working during all of this. I couldn't afford to stop. My job in IT kept me grounded, kept my schedule full. My manager had been patient when I missed hours handling court matters, but even patience has limits. I returned to a pile of tasks and a team that had moved on. People whispered. They'd read the articles. Most believed I was the victim, but curiosity always finds ways to disguise judgment. I kept my head down and rebuilt. A few weeks after the trial, I started getting emails. Not from creditors, those I expected. These were from reporters, internet bloggers, amateur justice chasers. The kind of people who hunt down strange legal stories and stretch them into viral posts. One of them even offered to pay me to do an interview. Said it would be a redemption arc. I didn't respond. Turning pain into entertainment felt like another violation. But the attention didn't stop. Someone had found Laura's social accounts. Screenshots from before the trial spread online. Captions mocking her. Comment sections dissecting every post she made. Pictures of her on vacation. Videos of her buying things with my stolen name. People tore it all apart. I watched silently as her digital reputation crumbled. Her name became a warning in fraud prevention groups. Employers flagged her in background checks. She was losing more each day, and I hadn't said a word. Still, my parents stayed on her side. They didn't call it support. They called it forgiveness. They said she was paying the price, that there was no need for me to hold on to anger. My mother even asked if I'd visit her before sentencing. I told her not to ask me again. Then came the countersuit. She hired a new lawyer. One of those aggressive ones who thought technicalities could flip reality. He filed a civil case, claimed emotional distress, said I had embarrassed her publicly and exaggerated her involvement to destroy her. That part stunned me. After everything she did, she had the nerve to say I'd gone too far. The judge nearly dismissed it immediately, but because it was civil, it had to go through the process. I had to lawyer up again. More time, more money. My attorney told me not to worry. The evidence was still on my side, but that wasn't what bothered me. What got under my skin was how she just wouldn't stop. She didn't care that she lost. She didn't care that I'd given her chances to confess, to own it, to stop the damage. She just kept clawing for control, like nothing could be her fault. I started digging again. Not for revenge. For defense. I reopened the folder I had locked away, the evidence archive. Reviewed every recording. Rechecked the timestamps. And while doing that, I found something I hadn't noticed before. A slip. In one of the videos, she mentions a friend named Carter. Not someone I knew well. I remembered the name from high school. A guy she dated for a while, shady reputation, always finding ways to game the system. He wasn't around during the trial. Never came up. I checked my documents, no traces of him. So I started searching. It didn't take long. He'd been in trouble before. Minor fraud charges. Drop shipping scams. Then I found something that hit harder, an apartment lease that matched one of the IP addresses used in the fake account signups. The one detail the police missed. It wasn't just her. She had help. I brought it to my lawyer. He took it seriously. Filed an addendum to the countersuit defense. Turned out Carter had set up the routing system, masked her IP at times, even helped forge some of the online documents. When subpoenaed, he vanished. But the record spoke. It didn't excuse what Laura did. It made it worse. She'd planned this longer than anyone thought. The court dismissed her civil case, called it an abusive process. Her lawyer backed out afterward. She had no representation left. Her sentencing date was confirmed 18 months. Not for all the debt, but for identity fraud, false documentation, and obstruction during the investigation. She wouldn't go to a high-security facility. But it wouldn't be a halfway house either. The day of the sentencing, I didn't go. I stayed home, locked my phone, and opened my computer. I logged into my credit file. One by one, I watched the last flags clear. The fraud markers removed. My score began to climb again, slow but steady. My real name was finally my own again. Later that evening, I got a message from her ex-friend, the same one who had given me screenshots before. She sent a picture of Laura, taken in court before the sentence. No caption, just her face. Hollow. Not scared, not angry, just gone. Like someone finally realized the mask didn't fit anymore. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel triumphant. Just calm. She'd spent so long trying to erase me that she'd forgotten who she was underneath. And now, with everything exposed, she had nothing left to hide behind. The story could have ended there, but it didn't. 2 months after she was taken in, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, a handwritten note. You win, but you'll always be alone. No signature, but I knew her handwriting. She'd always written her lowercase g with a sharp hook. I tore it in half and threw it out, but it stayed with me. Not the words, the tone. That final jab, like even at her lowest, she wanted to get the last word. I started therapy after that. Not because I was broken. Because I didn't want to be. Because for too long, I'd let her voice echo in my decisions, in my self-doubt, in my silence. I wanted to strip it out and leave it behind. My credit was fixed. My name was clean. My job stable. But peace? That took longer. She eventually reached out again, through a lawyer this time. Asked if I'd consider letting her stay at my old apartment after release, since it was under both our names at one point. I said no, no explanation. No debate. Just no. When Laura was finally released, it didn't make the news. There were no articles. No whispers. No family waiting with signs or apologies. She walked out of that low-security facility with a bag of state-issued items and no place to go. She tried contacting my parents again. My father picked her up, brought her home, but this time the silence between them didn't break. Things had changed. She wasn't the daughter they remembered, and I wasn't the villain they believed me to be. By the time she walked back into their house, my life had already taken a different shape. I had moved across the state. New apartment, different job, fresh environment. I didn't leave because of fear or shame. I left because staying felt like trying to breathe underwater. Every street, every corner shop reminded me of the lies I had to clear up and the trust one had to rebuild. So I didn't try to erase the past. I just walked past it. A few weeks after her release, my parents asked me to meet them for lunch. I agreed, mostly out of respect. They didn't mention Laura on the phone. When I arrived, they didn't mention her at the table either. We talked about regular things, work, weather, mutual relatives. Toward the end, my mother finally brought her up. Said Laura was trying to start over. I didn't ask how. I didn't need details. I just said, I wish her peace, and paid the bill. Then came the strange part. A credit alert popped up one morning. Just a minor inquiry. Not a new account. Not a major move. But it was enough to get my attention. I checked the report. A furniture rental company had pulled my credit, one I'd never contacted, in a city I hadn't been to. I called them immediately. After some security steps, the representative confirmed someone had used my old social with a slightly altered name. She told me it was denied instantly because of the fraud marker still flagged in their system. I asked for the address that had been used. It was my parents' zip code. I didn't wait. I drove back, called ahead, and told them I needed to speak with them alone. When I got there, Laura was already gone out for errands, my mother said. I asked them plainly if she had used any of my old mail, accounts, or information. They said no. They looked me in the eye. But they were nervous. I could tell. I went upstairs to the attic. I used to store things there, boxes from my college days, old tax papers, documents I'd meant to destroy. I never thought she'd come up here. She had. A few envelopes were missing. Nothing huge, but enough to find traces of past accounts. The kind of details someone with bad intentions could twist into something active. I came back down and told them the truth. If she tried anything again, anything at all, I would press charges. There would be no warnings. No hesitation. My father said nothing. My mother asked if I could give her one more chance. I didn't argue. I just left. The next morning, I filed a new fraud alert. Extended version. I set every bank in service to manual verification. Locked my credit. Changed all recovery emails. Got a new P.O. box. Shredded everything from the attic. There would be no second wave. Weeks passed. No more alerts. No strange mail. Nothing unusual. I told myself maybe that small incident was just her last twitch of defiance. A final attempt to see if she still had access. When it failed, she vanished again from my world. I stayed low profile. No social media. No tags. No check-ins. My life was mine again, and I didn't need an audience. Then, one morning, I received a letter. Not typed. Handwritten. Different style than the last. No hook on the G. The writing was tight, controlled. It was from Laura. I know you'll throw this out, but I wanted to say something while it still matters. I don't blame you for hating me. I'd hate me too. I didn't expect you to forgive me. I expected you to finish me. You didn't. And because of that, I've started over. Not as your sister. Just as someone trying to stay invisible. I'm leaving town. You won't hear from me again. I messed up everything. But I don't want to take anything else from you. I hope you find peace. I'm trying to do the same. That was the last time I heard from her. I don't know where she went. I didn't try to find out. I didn't track her, didn't send anything back, didn't even tell my parents. I just kept the letter in a locked drawer, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. Some stories don't end with closure. They just stop when you walk away from them. I changed my last name 6 months later. Not legally, but publicly. New work email, new profile, updated records where possible. A quiet rebranding. The name she'd used to ruin me was one I didn't need to carry anymore. My parents eventually understood. Not immediately. Not all at once. But slowly after silence stretched long enough to make them think. My father called me one evening. He didn't say much. Just, I see it now. That was enough. I moved forward. Not fast. Just steady. I met someone. Quiet, kind, good with details. I didn't tell her the whole story at first. Not out of shame, just out of protection. But one night, I explained it all. She didn't ask many questions. Just listened. And when I was done, she said, "I'm glad you're still standing." That stuck with me. Because I wasn't just standing, I was living. No more alerts. No more court dates. No more accusations or fake accounts. Just days with meaning, nights with sleep, and a name that belonged to me again. She tried to erase me and became the one who disappeared. She tried to bury my identity and ended up losing hers.